Since its debut in 1997, South Park has grown to 28 seasons, a handful of specials, and a film. With this much content, it's not surprising that the show has accumulated a lot of interesting history and behind-the-scenes trivia. I've gone ahead and handpicked a lot of that niche media and compiled it all into one mega iceberg. If you don't know what an iceberg is, it's basically a list of all the niche media, trivia, little-known facts, and related content compiled together and ranked in a tiered format, ranging from surface-level knowledge to little-known, sometimes controversial or purposeful hidden media or information about a certain topic. So, as the title of this video suggests, the South Park iceberg is explained in 20 minutes. Let's get straight into it. Tier 1, the tip. Matt and Trey voice almost everyone. The creators of South Park, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, are notorious for voicing almost everyone, well, as the iceberg suggests. Notable characters voiced by Trey Parker include Kyle and Gerald, Broflovsky, Kenny McCormick, Butterscotch, and Craig Tucker. Notable characters voiced by Matt Stone include Stan and Randy Marsh, Eric Cartman, Mr. Donovan, Mr. Hanky, and of course, Jesus. Kenny dies in every episode. This iceberg is quite straightforward, given that before season 6, Kenny was seen being killed in very gruesome ways in almost every episode, followed by Kyle or Stan yelling, "Oh my god, they killed Kenny, you bastards!" This gag would stay persistent until season 5 episode 13, titled Kenny Dies, where Kenny would be killed off for the entirety of the remaining season, until finally returning in the finale of the 6th season. Mormon controversy. The Mormon controversy stems from the episode titled All About Mormons, Season 7, Episode 12. The episode revolved around a Mormon family moving to South Park and shaping the views of the families of South Park, more specifically, Stan's on Mormonism. The story of the founding of Mormonism by Joseph Smith and the origin of the Book of Mormon. While Stan criticizes Mormonism for lack of evidence, the Mormon family remains firm on their stance that faith doesn't require proof. While this episode did result in some backlash, it was still praised for its historical accuracy while still mocking the belief in it, in classic South Park fashion. Canada Wall. The Canada Wall is a seemingly satirical take on Donald Trump's then-proposed border wall from South Park. In the episode Where My Country Gone, an overtly smug Canadian border guard refuses Mr. Garrison entry into Canada, while seated on top of a comically large concrete wall. The wall also makes its appearance in South Park, The Fractured Butthole Game. Mr. Hanky. Mr. Hanky is a jolly, living piece of feces and South Park's Christmas icon. He comes to those who have healthy, high-fiber diets and makes his home in the sewers below the town. The idea for the character came from Trey Parker's youth. His dad used to scare him by saying that Mr. Hanky would come out and nibble on him if he didn't flush the toilet. On Christmas, he comes to visit those who have a lot of high fiber in their diets, originally appearing in The Simpsons. The character made his way in South Park. Casa Bonita. Casa Bonita is a real Mexican-themed restaurant in Lakewood, Colorado, that originally opened back in 1974. It was featured heavily in the Season 7 South Park episode Casa Bonita, in which Cartman is desperate to attend Kyle's birthday party, which he's having at Casa Bonita, but can't because Kyle invites Butters instead of him. And so Cartman convinces Butters that a meteor is going to hit Earth so he can trap him in a bomb shelter, meaning that he will be able to take his place and go to Casa Bonita. In March of 2020, the real Casa Bonita closed because of COVID, and in April 2021, the owners filed for bankruptcy. Matt and Trey offered to buy the place for $3.1 million, and the sale was completed on November 19th. From here, they spent a further $40 million renovating the place. There was also a documentary made about the renovation process titled Casa Bonita Mi Amor. Tier 2, Shallow Waters. Tegrity Farms. Tegrity Farms was a weed farm that Randy moved the family to back in Season 22, Episode 4. This then became their permanent residence for multiple seasons, as well as becoming the focal point of many episodes for late Season 22 and throughout Season 23, with many storylines about Randy and his weed business, with even the original intro for the series being replaced by a brand new Tegrity Farms intro at the start of Season 23. Reviews of these episodes have been mixed at best, with some fans absolutely hating it and others thinking it was just okay. But finally in Season 27, Randy sold the farm after admitting the business failed, and the Marshes moved away from it. Celebrity parodies. Matt and Trey are famous for not caring about their public perception, even in highly influential people such as politicians or celebrities, expressing great dislike for the ultra-famous. You've got everyone from reality stars to singers to actors, usually being made fun of, but very occasionally not. With Trey having stated in an interview, when celebrities get made fun of, they they cannot believe it. These are not good people for the most part. They're not good people. They're not smart people, and they're not talented people. Many celebrities have responded negatively to their appearances in the series. A major example would be that of Jennifer Lopez, who supposedly fired some people from a movie she was working on because she got so mad at them for quoting the line, "Oh, tacos, I love tacos," with some responding positively to it, such as the likes of Logan Paul, who responded positively to his portrayal and even recreated the cred ads seen in the episode. Video games. South Park has had quite a few video games throughout the years, some good, others not so good, ranging from first-person shooters to RPGs. The first game based on the series was titled plain and simple South Park for the Nintendo 64, then later for PC and PlayStation. Surprisingly, the game was a first-person shooter. A second game would be released the following year on the N64, PlayStation, Dreamcast, and PC, this one being titled South Park Chef's Love Shack. It was pretty much a game show themed party game. Then there was South Park Rally, a racing game released for PlayStation, N64, and Dreamcast on various dates in early 2000. It wouldn't be until 9 years later that a new South Park game was released, South Park Let's Go to Defense Play, which came out for the Xbox 360 via the Xbox Live Arcade service. This was a South Park themed tower defense game, as you probably guessed. Then on March 30th, 2012, another Xbox Live Arcade game was released. This time it was South Park's Tinamen's Revenge, a co-op platformer in which you can play as Kyle, Kenny, Cartman, or Stan, and you have to fight Scott Tinamen's army of ginger kids to get your Xbox 360 hard drive back. Then, on March 4th, 2014, there was a return to full games with physical releases on multiple platforms. South Park The Stick of Truth, an RPG where you play as the new kid and are able to explore the town of South Park freely. This one's fantasy themed, with the boys playing as wizards and elves and stuff, and the entire thing revolves around the titular Stick of Truth, with you needing to get it, but everyone else wants it, so it's stolen numerous times. The next game for the franchise was actually South Park Pinball, released in 2014. The Spirit of Christmas. Before South Park became the staple in pop culture that it is today, it all started from 2 short animated films, which became the forerunners of what later became South Park. The Spirit of Christmas is what birthed the show in reality, created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. The initial short, Jesus vs. Frosty, was done back in 1992, when Parker and Stone happened to be college boys. It was produced at an extremely low budget, using simple paper cutouts for animation, crude humor, poor audio quality, and the earliest versions of the characters who would later get fully developed into the South Park kids. Oddly enough, Cartman is referred to as Kenny here. True to form, Kenny still dies. The next skit, Jesus vs. Santa, was done in 1995, and saw much improvement as far as the animation and comedy are concerned. This version made its way onto the internet and also on VHS tapes that were being passed around over the early net, quickly gaining a large following. It happens to be one of the first viral animations that ever caught Comedy Central executives' attention. The reception of Jesus vs. Santa took Parker and Stone by surprise, with such a wave of interest that they were offered to translate the concept into a full television series. That short was a direct precursor to the inception of South Park, thereby positioning the Spirit of Christmas as perhaps one of those critical moments in the history of adult animation. Simpsons and Family Guy. A running gag or theme that has absolutely taken hold in viewers' minds regarding South Park is its attacks on other adult animated series. The 2 front examples it takes on most often are Family Guy and The Simpsons. However, the situation with each show is very different. Family Guy gets an open bash for what South Park sees as lazy, formulaic writing. This knock shows best in the episode Cartoon Wars Part 1 and 2. Therein, Family Guy appears to have no real scribes at all. In truth, the jokes get made by manatees who toss random words into idea balls and then turn into cutaway gags. This is a direct jab at Family Guy's reliance on unconnected, reference-based humor rather than true storytelling. The Simpsons, on the other hand, are treated with far more respect. Rather than attacking the show's quality, South Park argues that The Simpsons have simply been around for so long they've already done every possible idea. This is the central joke of the episode titled, The Simpsons Already Did It, where the boys repeatedly realize that any plot they come up with has already appeared on The Simpsons. These episodes show what South Park thinks about comedy and originality. They also touch on what makes parody different from just doing the same thing. Chef's exit from South Park. Chef is arguably one of the most beloved characters to ever grace the South Park screen. Voiced by soul singer Isaac Hayes, the boys' cafeteria chef becomes quite a trusted adult and normally offers advice that usually turns into sexually charged musical numbers. He was part of the show from its very first episode and stayed on, being a fan favorite for close to 10 years. Chef was taken out of the show after the season 9 episode, Trapped in the Closet. This episode made fun of Scientology. Isaac Hayes was known to be part of the Church of Scientology. Not long after that episode was shown, he said he was leaving South Park because of religious intolerance. At the time, it looked like Hayes had quit because the show had crossed a line with him. Years later, however, Hayes' son would set the record straight. According to him, Isaac Hayes suffered a massive stroke around that time and was not in any condition to make major decisions. He alleges that it was members of Hayes' Scientology entourage who made the decision for him and released the public statement purportedly on his behalf. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, in turn, killed off Chef in their own way, having him return as a brainwashed parody of the situation that played out with Isaac Hayes in real life during the return of Chef from season 10. The late Isaac Hayes would never get to see if any other moment on South Park could ever top how controversial Chef's exit was. Towley fandom. Towley is probably one of the most divisive characters ever introduced into South Park. He was first seen in Season 5 and was depicted as a sentient towel created by Tynacorp Corporation. From the very beginning, Trey Parker and Matt Stone made it crystal clear that Towley was supposed to be annoying, forgettable, and unnecessary on all possible levels. In fact, there wasn't any big joke about his character. The real joke was how bad a character he was supposed to be. Towley picked up an enormous fan following. His constant drug use, laid-back persona, and ever-so-quotable line, "Don't forget to bring a towel," seemed to ring heavily with stoner culture. What slowly emerged as genuine popularity, particularly online, was supposed to be satire. Towley eventually turned into a recurring background character, popping up now and then to throw vague advice or to just get high. But he shot back to fame in April of 2021 when Adidas officially collaborated with South Park to drop Towley-themed Campus 80 sneakers for 420. These kicks had color-changing eyes, hidden pockets, plus references to his most famous quotes. Towley's fandom is one of the greatest ironies of South Park, a character designed to satirize lazy writing, becoming an iconic beloved figure through the exact audience he was intended to lampoon. With that, it marks the end of the second tier and the beginning of Tier 3, the depths. Kenny intro lines. It's common knowledge by now that Kenny isn't just babbling incoherently in the series, but rather, he's speaking full sentences. His lines are intentionally muffled, but if you pay close attention or read along with legitimate subtitles, his words are surprisingly coherent. Since virtually nobody could make out what he was saying in the early days, Matt and Trey discovered they could pull off a little sneaky move. They resolved to make Kenny's lines in the opening theme song deliberately vulgar. Since there was heavy distortion over the words, it mostly slid by censors entirely. Most people never noticed, which made the joke even funnier to its creators. Seasons 1 through 3, Kenny's intro lines comprised of crude remarks, stating, "I like girls with deep, I like girls with fat." Seasons 4 and 5 took it even further with more outrageous phrasing. When Kenny was written out of the show in Season 6, his spot in the intro was temporarily replaced by Timmy. After Kenny came back, his lines kept changing. In Season 7 to early Season 10, his lyrics talked about Britney Spears. From the second half of Season 10 onward, they changed again. It stayed inappropriate, but was more vague and heavily censored. Kenny unhooded. Kenny is usually only seen wearing his orange parka with his hood up, meaning we don't get to see his face often. Originally, he was only seen like this, and he wouldn't actually be seen unhooded until the release of South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, where at the end of the film, he removed his hood for the first time. Since then, he's appeared unhooded and unmuffled a few times throughout the show, most notably as Mysterion in the Conan Friends episodes, where I guess he still has a hood, so I don't know if he's really unhooded, but he's unmuffled. And his most recent unhooded appearance was in Season 26's Dick and Mole's Hot Dogs. Eric Cartman's father. The question of who Eric Cartman's father was became one of the oldest running mysteries in South Park. This is a major plot point early in the series that extends into Season 2, with an episode titled, "Cartman's Mom is Still a Dirty Slut." The answer, as revealed in that episode, is that Cartman's mother, Leanne Cartman, is actually a hermaphrodite. She has both male and female reproductive organs. Thus, she is both Cartman's mother and father. The mystery seemingly ends. This revelation doesn't last forever. Years later, in the very controversial episodes 200 and 201, the show retcons this entire explanation. It's shown that the initial results of the paternity test were tampered with, and that the story was just a lie used to cover up the real truth, which turns out to be so much darker. Cartman's real father is revealed to be Jack Tinnerman, Scott Tinnerman's father. This means that Cartman unknowingly killed his own father, and Scott Tinnerman must die. This flip puts a new angle on one of the direst hours of the show, and firmly plants Cartman as perhaps one of the most insanely complex characters ever to grace the history books of animated television. Cartman cooked his own father. The darkest episode from Season 5 of South Park is titled Scott Tinnerman Must Die. What starts as a lighthearted prank takes a more serious turn. After being outsmarted by an older boy named Scott Tinnerman, Cartman becomes determined to seek revenge. He approaches the situation with a calm and strategic mindset, which is different from his typical behavior. Cartman creates an elaborate plan that involves a chili cook-off. In a surprising turn of events, Scott ends up eating chili that has a personal connection to him. As Scott reacts with distress, Cartman reveals what happened, feeling a sense of achievement for executing his plan. At the time, this incident was sufficiently shocking by itself. Things learned later made it even worse. In episodes 200 and 201, it's revealed to us that Scott's father, Jack Tinnerman, was in fact Cartman's real father. This retroactively means that Cartman didn't just murder Scott's parents, he murdered his own biological father and fed him to his own half-brother. Jared has AIDS. Jared Has AIDS is the 8th episode of South Park Season 6, and for years it's been surrounded by confusion over whether it was ever actually banned. The boys misunderstand an AIDS diagnosis and spread panic throughout South Park. This is the main plot of the episode, but there's also a very dark subplot in which more adults continue to beat and neglect Butters. Some fans vividly recall that the episode was yanked from reruns not long after its original airing, convinced it was put on a temporary ban because of the massive amount of AIDS jokes, and that unsettling ending with Butters. Others remember seeing the reruns play just fine in different areas, audience, thus conflicting memories. This created a perception that perhaps the episode was never officially banned on a national level, but only selectively restricted, less frequently aired, or temporarily removed depending on local standards and Comedy Central's internal policies at the time. Other evidently banned South Park episodes notwithstanding, there has never been any public announcement to confirm its removal. With time, Jared Has AIDS quietly resumed normal rotation and later appeared on DVDs and in streams with no edits. Due to a lack of documentation and an inconsistent viewer experience, the episode status is pretty much in limbo. And this is exactly why it's even on the Iceberg. Not because it was definitively banned, but rather because nobody can fully agree on what actually happened. Alien Easter eggs. A rather long-running inside joke involves having aliens covertly appear in the background shots of episodes. The aliens made their first appearance, believe it or not, in episode 1. Cartman gets an anal probe, where they abduct Cartman and set the series' tone of absurd humor. Then the animators started placing the aliens in a few sporadic scenes throughout the show as visual Easter eggs. Mostly they're put in classrooms, streets, or crowds as background shots of a single frame. For this very reason, most viewers never noticed them unless they were actively looking. In the first few seasons, alien sightings were very common, and it almost became a running gag for fans to spot them in every episode. But as South Park grew more complicated, plus tighter production schedules, the aliens weren't as frequent anymore, eventually disappearing most of the time. The aliens don't have much to do with the plot, and since they're never acknowledged by any character, their appearance might seem somewhat disturbing. Their mute participation just adds up to South Park's bizarre harem-scarum vibes, and has also propelled fans' superstitions relating to concealed plots or state surveillance. Nambla episode. The South Park episode Cartman Joins a Group became one of the most poignant yet extremely uncomfortable episodes. On its surface, it follows Cartman as he goes on a quest over the internet to make friends because he believes adults will treat him with more respect compared with kids his age. In his quest, he happens across an organization that appears to be harmless, but turns out to be quite controversial association. The comedy arises out of purposeful misinterpretation and over-explanation. Cartman doesn't understand at all what the real nature of this group is, while the adults involved are painfully explicit about their intentions on the surface level. Matters come to a head when Cartman makes friends with a strange man known as Mr. Hat, ultimately revealed to be his teacher Mr. Garrison through an online alias. It doesn't just play the subject for shock value, it rather satirizes early internet culture, online anonymity, and how easily predators could exploit chat rooms in the early 2000s. Internet safety was poorly known at the time. This made the episode feel particularly unsettling in retrospect. Cartman Joins Nambla is often considered one of the most controversial episodes of South Park. It's never officially been banned, but in practice it rarely airs and comes up most often in discussions as an example of just how far the series was ever willing to go in order to reveal uncomfortable truths via the route of extreme satire, earning itself a place way down deep inside the iceberg. And with that, let's conclude this iceberg with a bang, talking about the real South Park. South Park is not a made-up town. Its base lies in an actual geographic location by the name of South Park Basin, Colorado. This place forms much of the vast high-altitude grazing land, and bears a long history of odd folk legends together with happenings that have never been explained. For years, the South Park Basin has been pegged with stories of UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, and other paranormal activity, much like its neighbor to the south, the San Luis Valley. This has not stopped it from gaining a reputation as one of Colorado's lesser-known hotbeds for weirdness and unexplained goings-on. Trey Parker hailed from Colorado. That area was known to him. He used the name both as a reference and as a joke. The show's town does not directly mirror the real location. The name only serves to subtly bind the series to a place already steeped in mystery. This link works its way below the South Park veneer, seeming to make right of all the wrongs about how nutty things are there, as if oddity has always found a home there. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude the South Park Iceberg. Click on the video screen to watch more South Park content, and before you click it, make sure to comment down below if we missed anything.